Slide it over to the left.
So if you go
so there
all the way over here,
sort of park neutral. And
so this is now conventional automatic drive mode.
Yes, correct.
Just like that. So neutral, reverse,
yes,
drive, like an auto.
Yes.
And then literally like that, it goes into manual.
Correct.
As simple as,
As
there's
simple
no,
as
like,
that.
you don't have to put it
There's
into
nothing
settings. You just throw it in when you feel like it.
Just backwards and forwards, however you choose.
We're really honored to be invited down ahead of the sheets coming off this. So this is blow away. We were really fortunate to see a scale model back when we were filming with you at your factory in sort of February, March time.
Right.
But to see it in reality is blow away. So, and congratulations on your 50th birthday, which is kind of why this thing exists, right?
Sort of, yes.
Yeah.
I would say more importantly is that it is 20 years since we delivered the first production car, the CC8S. Coincidentally, it's also my 50th birthday year. So we felt, why not make a little bit of a celebration model? The Yescos that are now on the production line and going out as we speak, they were sold out years ago when we haven't had any two-seater car to sell for years, and the phones are ringing off the hook, and we felt we need to add something to the lineup which has meaning and has a different purpose than the Yesco. And it's really bringing back Koenigsegg to the roots of where we started. When we did the CC8S, we were, I don't know, 10, 12 people in the company. And when I think back of it, I can't really imagine how we could do that car with so few people, with so small resources. And this is, of course, a reimagination of that. It's based on our latest technology, our latest chassis, and so on. But it's really celebrating that first effort in all its kind of glorious, simplistic, elegant shape that we came up with, that we really tried to make timeless. And this is kind of, I think, our statement to prove that point. It's still valid.
Sure. When CC8 launched, first car was delivered 2002?
Yes, correct.
So at the time, that was the world's most powerful
homologated
production
So we had emission homologation for Europe, could sell all over Europe. We had airbags, which was very unusual at the time, and a huge undertaking for a small company like ours. So it was fully homologated for Europe with emission control and everything. And it was, according to Guinness Book of Record, the most powerful homologated production car at 655 horsepower.
Right.
And
which today is like a decent SUV, you know, which is wild, right?
Yeah, and I remember reading some articles saying, these Swedes are wild, a Ferrari has 450 horsepower, no one ever will need anything more. This will never kind of be overtaken. As a few years later.
Yeah, here we go. You're making 50 of these.
Yeah, so we were saying, how many are going to make, 30 or 60 or whatever, and of course has to do with the production planning and line fill and this and that. But 50 felt like a good number. It's still very, very exclusive, and it has a meaning for kind of the Koenigsegg situation, given that I'm 50. So,
right, sure.
So that's why we chose that.
Brilliant. Now, I'm already thinking of the title and thumbnail of this video, and the chances are I've thrown in the word manual, right? So the audience already knows what's happening here. Let's start from underneath its robotized auto skin.
Yes.
It's based on a Yesco tub chassis.
Yes. I mean, fundamentally, the underpinnings are quite close to Yesco. The suspension is slightly different. It has different weight. It has a different aero setting, so we're adjusting the bump, rebound, damper curves, springs, and things like that. It has a unique wheel design to commemorate the original CC8S. And the top part of the chassis is different, meaning the carbon fiber bits that protrude upwards, because even though it looks very similar to most Koenigsegg's around in this wraparound screen, we wanted to celebrate the original CC8S kind of proportions, and the Yesco has a little bit bigger glass bubble, so we could not use it. Just didn't suit this car.
Right.
So this is actually, even though it looks very similar to all previous Koenigseggs, it's brand new glass, brand new side glass. Everything is redone to perfectly balance the proportions of the CC8S back in the days. So that's a little bit different. And then interior-wise, it's quite different because we have the manual shifter, and we have a different steering wheel, kind of harking back to the more traditional round steering wheels of back in the day, hypercars. And of course, 3 pedals for the manual, and then this Chrono Cluster 2, as we call it, because we had in the early days a Chrono Cluster, not in the CC8S, where we had a bit of a simpler instrumentation, but in the follow-on CCX, we made the Chrono Cluster, which was inspired by Swiss watchmaking, where you have 3 needles coming off of the center, doing speed, RPM, turbo boost, interplaying. And we created what we call here the Chrono Cluster 2 to celebrate that and really get that analog feel of the car.
So we're going to touch on the manual in a moment, because as you'd expect, this is no ordinary manual. But I just want to touch very quickly on the aesthetics of it, because you've done an incredible job of making a sort of nouveau retro interpretation of CC8 at a glance. Certainly from the side profile, you know, at first you're like, you can't quite put your finger on it. It just looks like a more refined version of it.
It's definitely more refined. I mean, the tools we have access to now, the surfacing, modeling, the aerodynamics, the ergonomic tools just in CAD. And of course, it is a slightly bigger car, but the proportion stays the same. It's kind of just a little bit blown out. The CC8S is actually a very small car. People think it's big when they see it on pictures, but if you park it next to another, like a I don't know, a Lamborghini or something, it's much tinier. It's lower, it's shorter, it's fairly wide. It's just under 2 meters wide, but it's squat and short, and wheels out in the corners, and that we still kept here. But it's a little bit taller, a little bit longer, to match current regulations, and also to have the best ergonomics possible, and also to be able to use the technology we have today.
Right. So coming around to the rear, CC8 didn't have a wing, so you've
Correct.
sort of integrated a Regera-style wing to keep that profile.
Exactly. This idea was first conceived on the Regera. So we started with the world's first top-mounted active wing on the one-to-one. The reason why you want to have top-mounted, as you see on many Le Mans cars and so on over the years, is that most of the important aerodynamics comes from underneath the wing, so you want that as undisturbed as possible. So then, race cars go to the hassle, if they're serious, to mount it from the top. It kind of looks a bit funky. But we did that on the one-to-ones. We came off of here, and then we top-mounted, and then we made it active. And as far as I'm aware, that was the world's first active top-mounted rear wing. And then to move that forward on the Regera, we played, okay, so let's make the world's first top-mounted active, fully foldable rear wing. So therefore you need these kind of cranes coming up. And this is, again, a reinterpretation of the Regera top-mounted active, fully foldable wing. And that was important for this car, because the idea with the CC8S was to have this Scandinavian, super sleek, hopefully timeless shape, because we realized we cannot just change to a new car all the time. We're a small company, so we need to kind of nail something that works over time. And one of the things we did not want to have then was actually a rear wing.
Right.
It was a choice. We had Venturi tunnels underneath and so on, and we got a relative decent amount of downforce. But later on, when power increased and so on, and demand increased, we actually put wings on the cars as well.
Right.
But here we can have the cake and eat it.
Yeah, yes. Phenomenal. We were actually really fortunate to drive Customer Car 1 earlier this year. Actually, we both said after driving it, you would never believe this car was 20 years old. I mean, it was what it must have been like at the time. I can see why everyone lost it, you know, because even now, driving it now, it felt an incredible sense of occasion. Just before we touch on the transmission, let's set a spot of context to the power and the weight of it, which in itself is special, right?
Yes. So we're talking 1,385 kilos and 1,385 horsepower.
Right.
So we're back to the one-to-one equation, and that's curb weight.
But that in itself, I mean, when you launched one-to-one, that was like a unicorn moment of someone's achieved it. You know, someone's managed to achieve a road car.
And we had to fight so hard for it.
Huge, right?
So we actually managed to undershoot the weight to the power by 10 kilos or something.
Wow.
So we measured every screw, and we drilled hole into everything and thinned out whatever we could So we had these Excel sheets just going through every component we had. And it's amazing when you start doing that, how much you can shave off just by minute changes everywhere.
Yeah, this is 1385 kilograms, 1385 horsepower. We did a little bit of pre-research earlier into how to contextualize that. And a Porsche GT4 is a little bit heavier than this car. So imagine a Porsche GT4 with 1,385 horsepower.
Right. And of course, still that's less than the Esco with 1,600 horsepower.
Incredible.
But we said to ourselves, this is a manual car, and you will be driving a lot with one hand on the steering wheel, having fun with the manual, flooring it. So we said, with this kind of power, we should not allow any type of turbo lag whatsoever. And I'm not saying the Esco has a lot of turbo lag. It actually has very, very little, especially given how boosted the car is. But here we said, you should not notice it. It should feel like just a normally aspirated engine, because when you have one hand on the steering wheel, you don't want any kind of linearities in the behavior. So therefore, we dropped the power down a little bit and completely smoothed out the power delivery.
I love how your idea of less power is 1,385 horsepower. It's just utterly nuts. So I know audience is chomping at the bit going, tell us about the manual.
Yes, yes.
This is really quite something. So first of all, one of the reasons that we don't see many new cars with manuals is due to the rules and regulations. It's very difficult to achieve.
It's getting more and more difficult. I mean, the emission regulations, for all good reasons, are of course becoming more and more strict. And it's very important to follow these regulations. But we are always pushing beyond that, making our cars running on renewable fuel as well. And there's coming so many exciting options there now with synthetic fuels and fuel made out of solar power plants, and or as we've spoken about before, Vulcanol from Iceland, recuperating CO2 from volcanoes. But yeah, so it's getting more and more difficult, and we want to really push the boundaries. So and interestingly enough, we had this Lst transmission, the light-speed transmission, which is actually smaller and lighter than the 6-speed SEMA gearbox we had, which was just manual. But has a much higher torque capacity. And it has 9 gears, so and that was what was available to us now as well. And we need that to be able to make the car worldwide homologation. And it gave us the opportunity to have, as it is a fully kind of digital gearbox, it gave us the possibility to have an auto mode and a manual mode, which is the world's first, as far as I'm aware. And not only that, the 6 forward gears we have in the gate, they have different gear ratios depending on which mode you're in. So for example, if you're on a racetrack, you're probably just driving out to the pits and not using the first gear very much. And third gear in the 9-speed gearbox is close to a traditional long first gear of an old school hypercar. So that's good enough for racetrack driving, that you get out of the pits with a long first gear, and then you have a tight box afterwards up your 6 slots or 5 slots beyond the first gear. And in normal mode, you don't want that long of a first gear. So instead of using third, we're using second as the first gear, which is about the same ratio as the SEMA 6-speed gearbox we used to have. So you have a little bit longer, and it would be a bit weird if you had like super short gears just shifting all the time. You want a little bit more legs when you're manually shifting, so you're not going nuts with it. And it gives that nice long pulls through the gears as well. But then when you kind of had enough of that, or you're in a traffic jam, or you just want to relax, you slot it into drive, and then it's a 9-speed automatic.
So you can, in simple terms, you operate this as a conventional 6-speed manual box, clutch, everything.
Absolutely.
And then you can slot it over, and it can become the automatic version of that box.
Exactly.
So you literally have 2 gearboxes in one.
I would say, and no weight penalty. As I said, it's lighter than a manual.
It's unbelievable.
But then, of course, what is very, very important as a manual you have for emotional reasons is that it feels proper manual and not like some video game or something. So we have spent a lot of energy making sure this is an analog experience. So the clutch pedal, we have calculated and measured the pressure it took to unload the springs of our previous manuals. And you have this hump, and there is no real software intervention between your foot movement and the clutch pressure. It's kind of a one-to-one situation with a proper weighted feel to the clutch pedal with this traditional kind of hump where you have your kiss point. So you can go in and out of kiss point. You can lift off the clutch too quickly and the car stalls. It is that direct link. Plus, when there is a hydraulic line from the pedal to your traditional clutch, if you slam it hard, you have inertia and you have restrictions of flow and so on, even though you don't think about it, it's heavier to push, but you're pushing harder as you're moving faster.
Right.
So we have this kind of feedback mechanism as well. So if you slam it hard, it actually gives more resistance. So it is acting really as that emotional manual that you would expect. Same with the shifter. It also has detains and force feedback mechanisms to make sure it really feels proper manual. For example, you cannot pull it out of gear until you have a correct rev match or enough clutch pressure. And you cannot put it into a too low gear at too high RPM because there are detains holding against that reduces in pressure when the rev is matching better, so you can force through. So, and this is so important because otherwise it's just a toy. It needs to have that proper engagement.
Analog feel, right?
Analog feel, and that you can trust it, and that it feels natural around a twisty road and nothing weird. And that is a big effort. But it's mostly software and hydraulics and the interlink between the clutch pedal, the shifter. The gearbox side is quite easy because there we only have to shift clutches.
Right.
But we need to, and when we move the shifter mechanism, we made sure it's not like end position measurements. It's measuring across the gate exactly. So when you're moving it around, you hear stuff going on back here. Oh, the driver wants to go over here. Okay, I'll prepare this set of clutches and this hydraulic. Oh, he's moving over there. Maybe he's going there. Okay, I'll prepare this. So it's not just, okay, he's in that slot or she, and then I choose that gear. It's kind of a constant interaction.
It's kind of manual by wire.
Yes.
That you've had to engineer and program in the characteristics of a conventional analog box.
Correct.
That must have taken a hell of a lot of work.
Yes. And this show car we're looking at is actually a proper driving car.
Right.
It's not just a show car. But it's number one, and we have already found some small improvements. So we're on drawing number 3 on the drawing board, and that's coming in the next couple of months into the program. But it's already unbelievably close to the perfect manual experience.
Wow. Okay, so in the spirit of giving you guys the best view we can, and in the authentic character of a Koenigsegg, we're going to take off I would say this is now an iconic roof, right?
Well, at the time when we did the CC8S, no supercar. I mean, hypercars didn't exist. They were called supercars.
Right.
None of them had detachable hardtops. Actually, that is not entirely true when I think about it. When we conceived the car, when we came up with it, none of them had detachable hardtops. So I felt, I want to do a coupe, which has no giveaway that you can take off the roof. It's just a very nice coupe. And then you can take off the roof, take it with you, and you have a nice roadster / convertible. No one has done that.
Yeah.
But then the Ferrari F50 came out in 1996 because I conceived this in 1994 and said, no, now someone has a detachable hardtop. But the F50, you could really see on the shape that it was something going on.
Yes.
It was not just a natural roof line. And you had to go to a garage to take it off, and you couldn't bring it with you. So we were already a little bit ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
And the integration, the seamless integration, because if you look at this, there are no split lines added to the car that wouldn't be there anyway. This is for the rear hood here. This is for the door. This is just a kind of a rubber seal for the window. So there is no physical giveaways that you can take off the roof. And the shape is completely natural. But then, of course, if we lift it up, and then you have this kind of absolutely natural roadster shape.
I mean, honestly, it's transformative, isn't it? When you take the roof off, it becomes a different car. Wow, look at that. It's so weird and so cool seeing a manual gearbox in this.
And of course, we celebrated the Swiss watch-like mechanism that had to be there for all the functions and for the right feel. And we're not hiding it. It's not in plain sight, but if you look down there, you can see all the intricacies of the mechanism.
This open-gated box is absolutely stunning. There it is.
There you have the clutch pedal.
There you have the clutch pedal. The instrument cluster is a work of art.
Yes, we put in a lot of effort into that one.
So that itself, having an analog instrument cluster in this day and age is huge. Right?
Yes, and also this that we have several gauges coming off of the same axle is kind of unusual, which we pioneered on the first Chrono Cluster as well.
What a thing.
And then this completely circular steering wheel. It's funny how something as simple as just a circle
Right.
is exciting.
Isn't it? Yeah, because most sports cars now will have a... Well, let's face it, there's this trend for rectangle wheels right now, okay?
Yes.
So to have a conventional round wheel in itself is cool.
It's suddenly a novelty.
It is, yeah. So here we go. That's got some energy.
You can blip it a little bit.
This is a really strange thing to say, but it's just like a manual. The biting point is so natural.
Right, it's direct.
It feels completely like a manual. I know it sounds ridiculous because it's a manual, but there's so much like software involved in it as well. Like if you didn't know, you wouldn't know, right?
Sorry?
If you didn't know, you wouldn't know.
No, that's the whole idea. It needs to feel like
Supernatural.
the most natural, engaging manual in history. That's the objective.
The bite, it's just completely, biting point is perfect.
I mean, there is no manipulation. It's just pressure control, direct.
Right.
It's like this. We could put software in between, but we have chosen not to.
Sure.
It's
the
the
right
only
move.
software is there to just do exactly what it normally does on a clutch.
Sure. It's like it doesn't have a flywheel, right?
No.
I was just about to say, it's like it doesn't have a flywheel.
It doesn't have a flywheel.
You can tell. The way that throttle responds is like it's being ignited by lasers. That's insane.
I'm shocked by it actually.
I can't convey to you how unbelievable that throttle pedal is. It's almost intimidatingly cool, you know? Wow.
This is already something we're very happy with, but we're meticulously working on that absolutely direct analog feel.
You've really dropped the mic on this one, haven't you? I mean, this is a real big deal. It's very, very special. So
and then if you slide it over to the left,
so if you go
harder, so there
all
you're
the way over
in
here,
sort of park neutral. And
so
then
this is now conventional automatic drive mode.
Yes, correct.
Just like that. So neutral, reverse,
Yes.
drive, like an auto.
Yes.
And then literally like that, it goes into manual.
Correct.
As simple as,
As
there's
simple
no,
as
like,
that.
you don't have to put it
There's
into different
nothing else.
settings. You just throw it in when you
That's
feel
it.
like
Just backwards and forwards, however you choose.
This is one of those sort of things where you might have had a chat down the pub with your mates and go, oh, wouldn't it be great if, why hasn't someone done this? And yet here we are. 2 gearboxes in one, automatic, manual.
So we're still, of course, fine-tuning things, and there are these kind of interesting cases. So let's say you're in manual, you're driving like this, and then you want to go to reverse, right?
Yeah.
So here your clutch, you use the clutch, of course.
Yeah.
And then you're there, and here you could choose to not use your clutch. And then you have reverse there.
Yeah.
So kind of the decision we have so far is if you're here,
Yes.
and if you go there, then you have to use your clutch.
Okay.
But if you're there,
Yes.
and you go there, you don't have to use your clutch.
It's
So it's these kind of
unbelievable.
interesting situations you have to figure out.
And so also you have different modes for like road and track where you're basically adapting the ratios
Correct.
to suit the driving style.
Yeah, we have
of what
9
you're
to
doing.
choose from.
Yes.
So in track mode, I mean, proper race cars, they have very long first gears because they want to save the spread for driving.
Yes.
So if you have a short first gear ratio, then you have a big jump to second, which would be a natural, and you can never use first gear even in tight hairpins or anything.
Right.
So to be able to drive on first gear around the track, it's tall, but you're only getting out of the pits normally, or out of a gravel or
Right. Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
So you won't cook your clutch due to high differential clutch speeds because you're using it so seldom for takeoff. So here we're using the option of third gear as the first slot to really compact the rest of the gears for the track. But in normal driving, that would be too tall. We would cook the clutch if you're in San Francisco or something like that. So then we go instead to what is the equivalent spot of second gear in the 9-speed gearbox, which is slightly shorter first gear than we had in our traditional 6-speed gearbox. So it's still short enough. and then you again have that kind of more decent spread through the gears. And second gear is then the equivalent of fourth slot of the 9 speed gearbox, because that's again the normal jump you would have in a 6-speed gearbox, and so on.
And is this one of the benefits of effectively having these compound gears? You're able to
I mean, the benefit of the compounding is that you can have fewer gears, but with more ratios. So it's a lighter, more compact gearbox. And 3x3 enables 9, so that's a good round number, and I don't think you need more. So that's kind of the good kind of sweet spot for the size of the gearbox. And if you had 2x2, you would only get 4. Right. But you still have 4 clutches. So there's not a big benefit, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of have to go to 3x3 to have a benefit, and then it becomes 9. And then if you have 4x4, it's way too many. So that's the sweet spot, I would say.
Just throwing this in there, like as if it's off camera, it's absolutely. I've never felt a throttle response like that on a road car.
It's it's similar to the Jesko, but then when you have the manual to play with on top of it, it's another layer. And here you can see the shortness of the transmission. So the rear of the tire is here. So if I draw a line there, it's like way ahead. It's at the center of the rear wheel, so the center of gravity is
smaller than take, for example, a twin clutch, which is very big and heavy.
It's half the size,
and it can deal with the same or more torque than a single clutch.
Absolutely,
box.
And most DCTs. I mean, I think the only DCT that has this kind of torque capacity is probably in a Bugatti. That's a huge thing.
Yeah.
So
it's ultralight and it could deal with loads of torque and small. Like, I mean, you know, being fortunate to be familiar with what it's like to look inside a Koenigsegg engine bay, everything's lower. The center of gravity on this must be nuts.
It's absolutely insane. And with this compact drivetrain and the compact gearbox and this type of styling, we suddenly notice, whoa, we have a lot of space. So we're going to make some kind of luggage space here for the production version.
You've got that much space?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, why not?
It's available, so we should use it.
You can see so much more of the subframe now.
Yeah, you should probably not transport ice cream there. But
not so much, no, for sure. Hopefully, if we play our cards right, experience it.
Yeah,
at some point, it'll be cool.
This one you should be able to experience quite soon. As I said, it's beyond the show car.
Right.
It's a real car. It's like a sample A of the range. This is actually my private car.
Oh wow!
So
congratulations!
As we developed the program, it was the birthday gift to myself.
Oh no way! Wow! Phenomenal! That's very cool.
So as we develop the program into production, this will go through kind of the iterations into the final version.
So what we are looking at, if Christian Von Koenigsegg was to spec a Koenigsegg, it would look like this.
Yes.
That's cool. Distinctly above average day out.